Right, so I'm going to give you a very quick demonstration so you can get on with yours. But what I want you to do is, once you've drawn out your section, or you've picked 6 different insects from the image provided that you quite like the look of, that you'd like to have a go at drawing, I would then like you to start colouring them in. But I would like you to start using different techniques with it. So the whole idea behind this is not necessarily how realistic you get the work looking or anything like that. It's about you trying different media, different techniques, different materials, okay? So for example, for my little dragonfly here, I could use colour pencils if you've got those available to you at home. So I want to emphasise the fact that it's about doing what you can and creating what you can. Okay, so if you can't go into as much detail as me, don't worry about it. So I'm going to colour that wing in. And then I'm going to bring some of the purpley colour into it as well, because that's what looks like happens at the edge of the wing for me. It sort of fades out back into each other. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get my lighter blue to blend all that together. And I actually think it might be quite nice if, rather than just sticking to one media in each of the insects that you've selected, that if you actually start to use 2 or 3. So now that I've got my colour on my dragonfly's wing, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pen, and all of the little lines that I can see happening in the dragonfly, I could then go in with a pen and I could start to create some of that detail, so it kind of goes darker all the way around the edge. So rather than just sticking with colour pencils, I can explore and see what happens when I start using my pen on top. So this is what I'm talking about, not being too precious about your work and not thinking, oh, it has to be an incredibly detailed piece of work. I just want you to have a little bit of fun. It's not necessarily something that does have to go on your mind map, but I just want you to explore and experiment and see what you can create. Okay, so I'll give you a little example of colour pencil there. Maybe since I've got my pen in my hand, I'll do a little example of a biro pen drawing. So I've selected one of the little flies here. Now obviously on the drawing, on the photograph itself that I'm drawing from, it's really quite small, so I can't see a lot of detail. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use a technique called scrumbling, and I'm going to try and keep it really simple, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with it at all. I'm going to try and keep it really sort of sketchy and illustrative, because again, I'm not being too precious about it. I'm not worried about if it goes wrong. It's just an experiment. I've tried something different. You never know, you might find something that you really enjoy and that you want to work in your coursework. You want to do a larger drawing maybe with it next time. So I've got the little fly body there, and I'm actually going to move in with my black pen, separate a little bit of the sections out with my black pen like that. And then I think I'd actually go and draw the wings in with my black, because they just look like little liney lines like that. And it's got this little tail section on the end. Okay, so I think we can all agree that that is not an incredibly detailed drawing, but from a distance it does look quite sweet. Okay, so that's something I can use on my mind map. That's something I can use to illustrate some things. Okay, I could go in and I could try some with tone. So I'm looking at this beetle on mine. He's got like a little dark section down here, and then he sort of comes across lighter like this, Then he's got like little lines down his back, so I can experiment with using a bit of mark making, adding some lines into his back there. And then on this side, it's sort of the same. He's got like a big wavy tone section. And I know we've already experimented with tone and we've done a lot of detail with tone, but now I'm just experimenting with using something quite quick and quite light. So again, just add a little bit of that line detail in. The top here is a completely different tone, a completely different colour. And he's got some sort of different markings in there. So again, I could experiment with making different marks to create that and see how that works. And then he's kind of got this greeny section up here, and then we've got like a really big dark black bit in on the top. And then some little darker legs poking out around the outside. And again, a really quick little sketch that from further away looks quite effective, but as you go in you can see how simple it is and how quite easy and quick that I've done it. Okay, so I could go in and my other ones, I could use bits of pointillism, and we've all done that before because we all looked at doing a pointillism ladybird, so I could use some of that. I could do some cross hatching on one of my beetles to make the tones. I could sort of make the darker areas with lines really close together, and then areas where it gets lighter I can sort of start to spread those out a little bit more. I can do some of those cross hatching bits with pen. If I've got colour pencils at home, I can try all those techniques with colour pencil as well. Okay, the last little bit that I did want to show you is if you did have paints at home, you could use these, but I have a little lockdown top tip, and my little lockdown top tip is actually painting with coffee. So all I've got here is just some regular granulated coffee, the instant kind, and then I've just mixed some of it up with water. So what you can do in order to paint with that is you can use lots of coffee grounds and really mix it up and make it quite dark for the darker areas, and then you just use it like watercolour paint and you start watering it out for the waterier areas. So I've got a beetle here that's got like a nice browny bit on his back. Anyway, I apologise for the rustling in the bathroom, by the way. My dog's decided he wants to get comfortable, and I could paint that dark just like that, and then where the tones in this beetle start to get lighter, and you might be able to hear me now because he's stopped wriggling around on his little bed, I'll fade that out and start fading it into the lighter tones. And then just where I want to build it back up and make it look a little bit darker again, I can just apply a little bit more paint back on top, a little bit more of that coffee, and make those little bits darker. And then I've sort of got a very dark line with a white section in the middle for this beetle part here. And then again we go back to the darker brown in the middle, and then it's separating and going back lighter around the outside of that. And again, I quite like this idea of building up different media together. So once I've done that, I could sort of draw back in and add some of the finer detail back in with a colour pencil or maybe even a pen or something like that, so it gets a bit darker around the edge of the beetle where that white section is there, and sort of fades out. And I can add my little line detailing around the middle. I can strengthen the edge of it. I could even go back in and sort of scribble on to make those tones a little bit more clear. Okay, but it's completely up to you. Have a play around with whatever you've got availability here at home in order to add tone and texture and pattern into these beetles and these flowers and the little bugs and stuff. if you are not really inspired by any of the bugs, you can also go onto the internet and find your own. As long as I have an array of bugs by the end of this week that you've tried lots of little different medium materials on, then I'm going to be completely happy. So it's over to you. Off you go.